The eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is sound, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is not sound, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness?
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Voris.
And I'm Simon Rafe.
And this is our show, Moral Compass. Well, our society is experiencing what can easily be described as an epidemic, a tsunami of pornography and similar material. Anything from the full-blown pornography of the X-rated video or website to the so-called soft-core porn of many R-rated movies to the sexual explicitness and innuendo of our daily television programming and advertising. Pornography was once only to be found in the seedy bookstore in a bad neighborhood in the bad part of town, and was a pastime pursued mostly by the obviously creepy trench coat wearer. Now it has become a plague, infecting the lives of millions, tens of millions of men, and increasingly women, most of whom are mainstream, upstanding citizens, even active church members.
A quick look at the numbers is sufficient to alert us to the scope of the problem. Americans rented over 800 million pornographic DVDs last year. Now that accounts for more than 20% of all movie rentals. In 2005, 11,000 X-rated movies were made. Now compare that to the 400 mainstream Hollywood releases that same year. Nearly 70% of men ages 18 to 26, well, they report having viewed pornography just in the past month. Treatment clinics specialized in addictive behavior have reported treating boys as young as 14 years old for addiction to online pornography. Can this possibly be good for us as individuals or as a society? What are we doing to ourselves? What are we becoming? On this episode of Moral Compass, we'll examine pornography and its negative effects on the maturity of, especially, men. Addiction to an immature, disordered experience of sexuality cannot but have immense ripple effects in our families and our whole society. As John Paul II said, let's pause and reason together.
In a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and earthenware. If anyone purifies himself, then he will be a vessel for noble use, consecrated and useful to the master of the house, ready for any good work. So shun youthful passions, and aim at righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call upon the Lord from a pure heart.
The mature man is a man with a developed mental and emotional capability. He is skilled at pursuing higher objectives in life. He values integrity, he's committed to truth, and his relationships are based on a humane and dependable love. Like the trained athlete, the mature man has disciplined not only his body, but his mind and his spirit under the direction of his will for achieving worthy goals. Like a vessel of gold or silver, he has been tried in fire and become available for lofty use and ready for every good work. On the contrary, the immature man has little direction and little self-control. He is that vessel of wood or earthenware, more easily broken or damaged when put to the test. Rather than being in charge of his appetites and desires, they are often in charge of him. He is generally unreliable and unsuitable for lofty use.
The mature man is like the man mentioned in Scripture who's given charge over a small thing, and having proved himself faithful, is given more responsibility and greater tasks. The immature one is like the man who was found to be unfaithful in the governance of a small thing, and thus, even that will be taken from him. A man is given charge of his life with all its drives and impulses. He has his own small thing, the interior life of his own heart and mind. Can he run this small thing well? Like the father who will first require his son to be responsible in doing his homework and household chores before turning over the keys to the car, so God tests us, seeing that we can handle our own lives well before turning us loose to serve and enjoy real human community and ultimately the kingdom of God. It is with great irony then that pornographic books, movies, websites and live performances are called adult, or that movies with sexual scenes are said to have mature content. Nothing could really be further from the truth. Voyeurism, peering in on the intimate relations of others, is neither adult nor mature. At best, it's adolescent, but it's actually better described as perverted or creepy. It is a pitiful replacement for real companionship. Pornographic forms of entertainment appeal to that part of a man that hasn't yet grown up.
Now, while pornography lays bare the intimate relations of others, those who use pornography actually find alienation, not intimacy. Instead, he has separated the stimulus response of sexual pleasure from everything that makes sex intimate. Sex was created to be shared between a man and a woman within the sanctity of marriage. Pornography doesn't even offer the physical presence and involvement of another human being, yet alone the warmth and devotion of marital love. Instead of real-life blessings, pornography offers only unreal fantasies, and this opens the door to addiction. Addiction, from a spiritual perspective, is itself a flight from reality. Feelings of low self-esteem, shame, isolation, or the pressures of life, work, or relationships are deemed too difficult to bear. The real world and its demands, the voice of conscience and God, are all ignored and replaced by intense, but merely physical experiences, feelings, or pleasures. But these experiences are shallow, and they don't address the original problem. They can never satisfy. Then comes repetition and compulsion, because the soul, in a way, in a certain sense, grows frantic, trying to get its hands on something, anything which is unattainable. No wonder researchers have observed that pornography use has a strong tendency to escalate into more and more exploitative and hardcore forms.
Pornography erodes love because it creates an excessive fascination with sex and a perverted view of it. It separates sex from the real marital relationships where couples negotiate conflict and foster love. It isolates it from the demands of mutual respect, honesty, and cooperation for a common, worthy goal. For these reasons, pornography becomes a school for learning the worst and most abusive kinds of sexual relationships. Fantasy becomes reality, and so that sexual and relationship dysfunctions are imported into the real world. Perversions, fetishes, violence, and child sexual abuse increase. If it's left unchecked, it becomes more and more mainstream. The young become more familiar with it. One recent study concluded that teenage girls are facing increasing pressure to perform various deviant sexual acts and tolerating this pressure as normal, since it's imitating what was seen in pornography.
But even the mildest of pornography's disorders are bad enough to outright reject it. Just by fixating people on the superficial aspects of sex, porn exchanges the desire for love with the hope for the most superficially pleasurable experience and for an airbrushed, subservient partner with a digital, flawless body. These things alone would be damaging to marriages. In a recent poll of matrimonial lawyers, it was reported that, get this, 56% of divorce cases involved one party having an obsessive interest in pornography. 56%. Contemporary research is showing that for both men and women, viewing pornography decreases sexual satisfaction with one's partner. Long-term use of porn can even simply cease to find the real person, their spouse, arousing.
What? You're just a Puritan. You need to calm down. I'm objecting. I'm getting my objection on.
One of those who would put boxers on Michelangelo's David or a blouse on the Venus de Milo. This isn't the case. While many are, perhaps rightly, suspicious of anything that could incite one's lust, one could also argue that the real problem with pornography is not that it shows too much, but it shows too little. Pornography separates the physical aspects of the person from the moral, emotional, spiritual, and psychological aspects, and champions just the physical to the detriment of all the rest. On the other hand, the great works of classical art that contain nudity are, for the most part, not reductionist in this way. One could reasonably say that this is the test of whether a particular piece of art or a particular piece is art or porn. Does the use of physical nudity draw us into a deeper consideration of the total person, or does it fixate us at the superficial level of sexual arousal? In great art, the person is not reduced to their physicality, but rather the physicality is used as a window into the other aspects of the person. Now, this, of course, reflects the Catholic principle of sacramentality, that a physical thing, including our bodies, can dispose us to receive God's grace. Both of them are being hurt spiritually and physically. Immoral actions like pornography are simply wrong in themselves, even if there is consent. Furthermore, the truly sad flaw in this view is that consent has little to do with the production of much pornography these days. The horrifying reality of sexual trafficking is the hidden underbelly of our society's appetite for pornography. U.S. Department of Justice estimates that in America alone, over 16,000 people, pay attention to these numbers, over 16,000 people, mostly women and children, are annually trafficked for purposes of prostitution and the production of pornography. The Department of Justice, the DOJ report, notes in passing, just in passing, that most traffickers are found with filming equipment and cameras. We wonder how many men who sit down at their computer to view pornography consider the fact that in doing so, they may be watching the chronicle of some young women's captivity, the archive of their living hell.
You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and throw it away. It is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell.
Where then do we turn? The immaturity of using human beings as instruments of pleasure rather than loving them must be replaced with the maturity of chastity. The Catholic Catechism defines it as the successful integration of sexuality within the person, and thus the inner unity of man in his bodily and spiritual being. Chastity then is ultimately about integrity, about being interiorly and exteriorly whole, united, one. Men must train themselves not only to avoid pornography, but also other impure actions, and to view women no more with the eyes of lust, but with the eyes of honor and respect, recalling that they are persons with special dignity and value. The man who wishes to have this kind of integrity must have self-mastery. Now, in what is a paradox for many people today, self-mastery is necessary to be a fully free human being. Man is faced with a choice. Either he governs his passions and appetites and is happy, or he allows himself to be governed by his passions and appetites and he is unhappy. Man must discipline his desires to experience the deep and abiding joy of righteousness. When he encounters temptation, he must bravely stand up and, like a warrior, defeat it. Like an athlete must endure pain to achieve his goals, the man of integrity must endure temptation without letting it overcome him. Most times, if at all possible, that means avoiding those situations that put him in close proximity to sin. At all times, it means to pray to God for the strength to prevail over the enemy. The enemy that we speak of is the devil, Satan, the deceiver. Surely he has a special love for pornography because it violently strikes out at the very heart of the great human desire to marry and raise a family. Whether in a stronger or a more subtle way, in all cases, pornography twists that desire. Pornography trains people to separate sexuality from authentic relationships with real, living people. Pornography often establishes an impossible standard of perfection for physical attractiveness and equates the success of a sexual relation to the amount of pleasure achieved in it, and not the unity of body and soul between man and woman. It fixates people on the superficial aspects of sexual relationship, rather than letting them be integrated into that exalted love that brings a man and a woman together for noble purposes.
Finally, it offends God, who created man for love, not lust. Lust clouds the heart so that it cannot see God for who he is. Only the pure of heart can see God. We have that from the lips of our blessed Lord himself. And only the mature man can really get down to the serious business of serving God on earth and ultimately in heaven. I'm Michael Voris, and this has been Moral Compass.
I'm Simon Rafe. God love you.